Hello, everybody. I thought I would go through a quick walkthrough of my T-TRAK-Z power module. I've gone over some of these features before, but I had this out getting ready for a show. I recently finished up the DCC portion of it, so kind of consider this to be a complete unit now. So I want to go over it. So this unit is for a T-TRAK-Z layout. T-TRAK-Z is more geared towards shows, typically, I would say. So you need to carry a power unit. You need to carry everything you need to run the layout with you to the show. Some people do this via a type of toolbox or maybe some sort of box or bin that they make. I actually elected to put everything onto a module. I find that the electronics, the control, the layout is a talking point. So I like to have it on the table for everyone to see. So this unit allows for DC or DCC layout operations. So I can run locomotives, older locomotives or newer locomotives that have DCC on board uh, for each of the tracks. So there's two circuits. Um, so first thing I'll show you is under the hood. My wiring is messy, so please be kind. But there are two 12-volt, 10-amp power supplies underneath. They're smaller fanless power supplies. Um, one power supply runs the DCC side, the other power supply runs the DC side, including the various accessories. What you see in front of you is on the DC side are two Rokuhan power packs. These are economical, cheap, whatever you want to call them. But they're kind of nice units. They are very sensitive to short circuits, which I consider a feature. Some people have problems with older Markland locomotives on these, but I find that that is really just due to how much amperage those locomotives pull. And my belief is a lot of those instances are locomotives that are not running well and need some help. So anyway, run these power packs. They're nice, small, and the cool thing about these is that they're also capable of being battery powered. So in a pinch, if you needed to, you could put some, I think it's AAA batteries in the power packs, and you could actually run your layout without power. So if you get to a show and the worst thing happens, you don't have an outlet or a place to plug in an extension cord, you can still run the locomotives on battery if you needed to. Um, so that's the DC side of the house. That's all that's there. And on the DCC side of the house, I run Digitrax. I'm in an area of the country where Digitrax is popular, so that's what I run. It also helps that they are one of a couple of manufacturers that make decoders for locomotives. So all my locomotives and all of the control equipment is all Digitrax. So this is a DCS 240. It's an 8-amp unit. It's way overkill for Z scale, but it is their full featured power pack. So it has USB connectivity on board for programming your locomotives. Um, it's the only booster you'll or the only booster controller that you'll ever need of any size. Sitting on top of it is a Digitrax LNWI. This is a small wireless unit that converts the throttle cable outputs. So these are for plugging in throttle control and related items to Digitrax. It takes one of those outputs and converts it to Wi-Fi signal so that I can run tablets and phones for all of my DCC locomotives. There's software for Apple devices and Android devices. Behind all of this, here are DCC Specialties PSX1s. So the thing about DCC that you have to be aware of for Z-Scale especially is that if you go buy a generic DCC unit, there aren't really many, if any. I think Rokon's the only one that makes a Z-scale sized DCC system. Everyone else just makes generic DCC systems. This unit has a lot of amps. It'll run 8 amps. And if you have a 2, 3, 4 amp short circuit on your layout, your little locomotive may only pass a couple of amps through a short circuit. It can sit and melt and die on the track. And the booster wouldn't care. It's not hitting its limit. The short circuit protection is very minimal on these. So in the back here, which you pretty much need to do on any DCC, but especially with Z-Scale, is you need to run external circuit protection for DCC. So these are DCC Specialties PSX1s. They do have the optional buzzer soldered in. They have a place for a buzzer on the board. And these are really cool, and these really take care of your gear. And I do like these specifically because they have a lot of options for attaching external lights, indicator lights, and of course the buzzer I just mentioned. When you're walking around your layout, and I've experienced this going to other people's layouts, if you have a short in an area of your layout, if you don't have any indicator of that short, it hurts your troubleshooting. You won't understand, why is your train not moving? What's the deal? What's wrong? So these are nice because I may be talking to someone on the other end of the layout, walking around, not paying full attention to or sitting right in front of the control unit. And if one of these has a short, then I get the lighting changes. I can have lighting indicators, but the buzzer sounds. So I get a buzzer, and then the circuit will attempt to reset. If something is continuing to be shorted, then it will continually reset and the buzzer will continually sound until you go address what's wrong. Below the circuit protection, it's a little hard to see, but I have a unit here, and I also have a unit here behind the DC power packs. DCC is a generic DCC unit runs too much voltage for Z-scale. And in fact, I'll get to this display in a minute, but you can see the voltage here is running 12.7 volts. That's what's coming out of the unit. This voltage is too high for Z-scale. You'll cook your stuff. So you need to run them through a unit that reduces the voltage to safe Z-scale voltage. So these little units in the back, these are called stepper smoothers. They're a product for 3D printers that does some electrical smoothing for 3D printer steppers. But what they are is just a series of diodes. There's just a pack of diodes under each of those boards. When you run your voltage through that board, it takes away some of the voltage. So I end up with 9 to 10 volts of voltage for my Z-Scale DCC. T-TRAK-Z does make a product for that, and if you are building a full scale, full size control system, I recommend buying the T-TRAK-Z unit. It's only 20 something dollars for each circuit, but it comes in a box that's this size, and I just didn't have room to put those units there. So I run these little smoother drivers instead. If you browse my channel on YouTube, you can find a review on those, and I talk more in detail about those. I have switching between DC and DCC, and I have power, master power, and then accessory power, and then I have resettable fuses for all the circuits in case I have a major problem. On the front of the panel here, these are just conveniences. These are just kind of items I already had, but I'll put them on the panel. First thing is a jack for T-TRAK-Z throttle. If someone comes in, is kind of old school and wants to run the T-TRAK-Z throttles. I don't have the muscle memory to use those throttles. You kind of need to have some experience with the throttles to use them quickly. And I also just don't have the money to run those throttles. Those throttles are, I want to say they're $150 a piece. So yeah, they're very expensive. So I elect to use old tablet or phone instead. But those are the jacks for the throttles. If someone comes and has an old school throttle, they can plug in on the front here and not drape a wire over the tracks, because this is part of your layout. The other unit over here is, can't remember the brand for this, but I think it's DCC Specialties actually, but it is a voltage and amperage monitor for your DCC. So the DCC with the raw voltage is coming out and running through this unit, and there's a shunt that's reading the amperage and the voltage. Now, this unit is feeding off of the DCC power to operate. So I had to give this the full voltage from the control unit. Unfortunately, the voltage that's going to the track is actually lower than this. So let's see what else I have to talk about here. I think that wraps up everything that's on the front of the unit. Of course, the other thing here I didn't mention, but I put USB ports on the front. When you have a tablet or a phone that's being used for your throttle, it's good to have a place to charge. A lot of shows you only get one electricity drop, so it's good to have power everything off your cord. A lot of my cohorts will actually take an extension cord and then plug a bunch of strips into it to power stuff across their layout. I don't like that. I do not recommend you do that. The less power strips you have, the better. The best thing to have is an extension cord with like a three-way outlet on the end of it, and try to conserve how much stuff you're plugging in together. All those connections can be a fire hazard at a show. All right, so let me flip this around the back. I'll show you the other end of this power supply. So um, and kind of lead into talking a little bit about the wiring on the layout. I've done other videos on this, so I'm not going to go real deep into that. But the back of the power unit is recessed so that I have room to bend the wiring to the side. And there's two outlets, and the idea is that you plug one one small pigtail into it, and you bend them to run each way. You can see these are already kind of pre-bent because I've used them before. Uh, but these take your two circuits. So I label my circuits with colors pursuant to T-TRAK and N-TRAK. So red and yellow are the two circuits. And I also output accessory power. I didn't talk about that when I was showing you the front of the board, but accessory power is, I think, really important for layout that travels to shows. Lighting, sound, movement, all those things are great for crowd. People want to put that kind of thing on their modules. And if you don't have a standard for the accessories, then you're going to have everyone wanting their own electrical drop, or people running their own batteries and all their own equipment inside their module. You want to try to cut down on that if you can. So 12 volt accessory is a standard for T-TRAK-Z. It's power pole wiring, just like the other circuits. It is aligned differently though. So if you look at the way these are aligned, the circuit runs across instead of the circuits running up and down to uh, keep you from plugging them in and having a bad time by plugging the two wires on one circuit together. Um, so I run, again, I've done other videos on this, so I'm not going to spend much time on this, but I run short bus segments. They're generic bus segments. They're all constructed the same. It is 14 gauge wire, all copper wire, not it's the tin, not tinned. There's lower grade wire that's not all copper. Make sure you get all copper. Make sure it's 14 gauge. 14 gauge is overkill for Z scale. I've had people ask me about that. It is absolutely overkill for Z scale. You don't need this for amperage reasons, but you need this so that you don't have voltage drops. You need the large gauge cable so that you can make long runs with no voltage drops. You can run somewhere around 50 to 75 feet per circuit away from your power center, and then your power center has two directions. If you build it as a module, you can go east or west, as it were. So you can run a lot of bus cable if you build it with large gauge cable. So I have yellow, I have red, and then I also have accessory cable. They're all constructed in the same way. They're all power pole, and then I roll them up on these Christmas tree rolls. It's a convenient way to carry everything to shows. I can carry all I need on these three rolls and then put them in this little bag. Uh, so nice and convenient. And then for the modules, you have feeder sections that you just interject in between the bus cables. So there's a red and yellow circuit feeder, and it's plugged into this module, but it has a couple feeders for modules. And then do the exact same thing for accessories. So it's all familiar, it's all the same connectors. They're just color coded differently, so you don't confuse them. Um, some people will run all DCC, especially in N-scale. You can do that. You can only run one power circuit for the whole layout. I choose to run two separate circuits because I want to split DC and DCC between the two circuits. I think that's really it. when you look at this wiring and you look at how the power and the accessory power has to run behind the modules, um, there's been a lot of discussion about from a few individuals about why are there backdrops on the modules, and why do you have this ugly trench in between the modules as they run back to back on the tables? The reason for that is for the wiring. You want room for the wiring, and once your layout is set up at a show, you need to be able to look behind there and see, is there trouble? Is the polarity wrong? Do all that sort of stuff. If you run your wiring underneath the module, then you're encasing the wires under all the modules. You can't really troubleshoot it. And then you're also jacking your modules up to account for the wiring, and you're removing the adjustability of the feet. You're removing range of adjustability for unlevel tables. So this has gone on way too long. It's a 15-minute video, so I'm going to end it here. Hope you enjoyed that walkthrough.